Kai'Sa isn't your average AD carry. She's got short range, a high risk engage kit, and abilities that upgrade as she collects different stats. Almost every high elo Kai'Sa builds precision keystones and Rageblade, but because she's so unique, there's one top 30 Kai'Sa player that's figured out a strange Arcane Comet full upgrade build. Let's break down his different setups and why they helped him get to a 67% win rate with a KDA over 5.
Are you the hunter or the prey?
Most Kai'Sa players run press the attack for extra damage or fleet footwork for extra sustain. But Dan doesn't run either of those keystones. Instead, he uses Arcane Comet from the sorcery branch. Arcane Comet's poke will fire when you hit opponents with Q or W. Each Q missile also counts as a dot for Arcane Comet, so if you hit all your Q missiles on a champion, you reduce Arcane Comet's cooldown by 30%. On top of that, speccing into sorcery as your primary tree lets you pick up the Ultimate Hat's cooldown reduction so you can ult more often, Celerity's movement speed to help move into her short 525 attack range, and Gathering Storm's scaling stats since she's a hyper carry. But Arcane Comet is extra important here because of the way Dan lanes. While most Kai'Sas will start off the lane with Q, Dan will start with W. Why? It has a massive 150% AD ratio. That's total, not bonus AD. Hitting it at level 1 against the enemy AD carry will do about 120 magic damage after resistances, proc Arcane Comet for around 25 physical damage, and apply 2 stacks of plasma. The poke is pretty strong and will catch opponents off guard, and if your support has immobilizing crowd control, they can follow up on it to get extra stacks of plasma and help rupture enemies for extra damage. As with most Kai'Sa players, Dan will max W last, but the damage and procs from landing at level 1 will force enemies to play defensively and can change the course of the lane from the start. Then there's the build. Kai'Sa's passive Living Weapon lets her upgrade her basic abilities when she hits certain AD, AP, or attack speed thresholds. This sparks a lot of debate as to whether using hybrid builds to upgrade all 3 skills is ever worth it. Dan thinks it can be. He uses a build path that lets Kai'Sa upgrade every ability, even though most players only upgrade Q and E. To do this, Dan will rush Hextech Gunblade as his first item. Gunblade grants 80 ability power and 40 attack damage, and rushing it will switch your adaptive stats to AP. Gunblade's passive heals for 15% of all damage dealt, so proccing Plasma or hitting Q and W will give a big chunk of health back. The active also helps Kai'Sa in burst combos. Once W hits, Kai'Sa can go in with her ult and burst to target with Q and Gunblade's active. After that, it's usually Death's Dance for even more self-healing and enough AD to upgrade her Q for more missiles. Next is Nashor's Tooth, which gives her more AP and cooldown reduction for ability spam. If you've got Berserker's Greaves and Rageblade, this also puts you over 100% bonus attack speed, upgrading E for true invisibility. Rageblade also gives Kai'Sa more sustain damage since she's almost pure burst with Gunblade. In total, the build lets you max out all of Kai'Sa's abilities, give her early sustain to complement her risky kit, and make sure she scales well into the late game with plenty of damage and attack speed. Dan also runs a more typical QE upgrade build with one big change. He really devalues the early Rageblade, which is most often her first or second item. He leaves Rageblade for his 4th item, using it for scaling and focusing on sustain early instead. He grabs a Death's Dance first since its lifesteal effect is similar to Gunblade's but only for physical damage. In any case, it's the best sustain item for Kai'Sa because it lets her heal up from Q. It also puts Kai'Sa at 80 AD, so with a longsword and Doran's Blade, she'll be able to upgrade Q. The core item build finishes with Runon's Hurricane and Essence Reaper. These 3 items altogether will give Kai'Sa 40% cooldown reduction, allowing her to constantly use Q for damage and insane amounts of healing. This lets her play more aggressively, diving the backline with her ult and getting a ton of healing while dishing out AoE damage. Overall, this build is a stylistic one built around early game poke and sustain. Its first items will give Comet a bigger punch, and later additions get you to 40% CDR for Q spam healing. Right now, Kai'Sa is one of the highest win rate AD carries in Plat and above with a ban rate of over 50%. She's incredibly strong even in her common build, but she will get tuned. When she does, keep in mind hybrid setups like Dan's. Arcane Comet Pressure, full upgrade builds, and major early sustain could all be in her future.
For more League interviews and analysis, subscribe to our channel. You can also find stats, discussions, and more on our website and mobile app at blitzesports.com.